So hello and welcome tout le monde to the Lawn Chair Soirée Ekstasis Book Launch. Before we start, I would ask you to please mute yourself until the Q&A at the end, except obviously the readers. We'll begin with a land acknowledgement. Nous sommes présentement situés sur des terres autochtones non cédées du territoire traditionnel des peuples Kanien'kehá:ka. Aujourd'hui, cette région de Tiohtià:ke, Montréal, abrite une population diversifiée d'Autochtones et d'autres peuples. As we gather in this virtual space, we'd like to acknowledge that we're coming to you from unceded Indigenous lands of the traditional territory of the Kanien'kehá:ka. Today, this area, Tiohtià:ke, known as Montreal, is home to a diverse population of Indigenous and other peoples. This afternoon, we have an incredible variety of writers, English, Francophone, poets, prose writers, and translators, and all from Quebec. Although Ken Norris currently lives in Toronto, his poetic heart resides in Montreal. Before we begin, I invite Richard Olafsson, publisher of Ekstasis Editions, which is celebrating its 40th year of publishing, to say a few words. Welcome, Richard.
Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to see the support and the people gathered together here. I'd like to welcome everybody to the paragraph reading of 6 Ekstasis Quebec authors. I wish I was there. I'm speaking from my backyard in Victoria. And a long relationship with Quebec authors. The first book I read, a translated book of a Quebec author, was Pierre Vallier's Life and ... of America, and that was when I was 14. So, and that just puts it in context. And our first translation of an author was Pierre Reverdy's Painted Stars, which we published in 1986. So Ekstasis has celebrated its 40th year. We've had a long commitment to work in translation. It has always inspired me personally to do this work, and it's great to see so many friends. This is somewhat historic because I remember in the mid 70s I picked up the Vehicle Poets in a bookstore, and I was interested in the scene going on, and it had Stephen Morrissey, Endre, and Ken Norris in it, and Claudia Lapp, who I really liked. And Ken Norris just told me a few days ago that she's still around, still writing poetry, and I've wondered about her for years. So we have Endre Farkas with his beautiful light lyric touch to his father's dementia. That was particularly meaningful to me because my mother died this year of dementia as I was putting the book together, and that was a sad event in my life personally. But and we have, and also we got Ken Norris, who has this incredible book with cover designed by Bill Bissett, which was a real honor to publish this work, and Stephen Morrissey's discourse on poetics, the green archetypal field. So but Robert Lalonde's book was very special. It's a beautiful beautiful translation by Jean-Paul Murray, who's consistently consistent and perfect translator. He's, it's hard to even change a word of his translations. He is so meticulous in his word choices, and it must come from having been a translator of speeches in Parliament. You have to be exact. So the Lalonde book was especially meaningful because it concerns the burning down of Lalonde's house and his loss of his book collection, which I also suffered a year before Robert's experience. And so it's especially meaningful. I wanted to do this just because I went through the same situation, and Lalonde's writing has a rich natural organic quality, beautiful lyricism that has really can only be found in a comparable writer would be Jean Guiorno, and Lalonde rises to those heights, and then Paul Bélanger's book on Pessoa. Well, there's been surges of interest in Pessoa at the same time, because there was a biography published by Scribner's recently, and Bélanger invokes the multifoliate persona of Fernando Pessoa. He brings Pessoa to life, taking one of his multiple personalities on a walk down the streets of Montreal, and then we have the Quebec authors, or the Francophone authors and the Anglophone authors of Quebec joined together in this reading. It really is creates a rainbow bridge between two cultures, and there's a real sense of oneness in the creative imagination that is present here. And we have the three vehicle poets, Ken Norris and Stephen Morrissey and Endre Farkas, and very special reading. So I'd like to say thank you everyone for coming, and thank you to the authors for joining together for this reading. It's a very historic reading in many respects, and it's a good start for our 40th anniversary year as well. So I'd like to say thank you, and I guess the reading will go on. So thank you very much, Carolyn. I guess you'll introduce the poets, will you? Yes.
Yes. Thanks so much, Richard. Thank you. So, without further ado, we begin with Stephen Morrissey, a Montreal-born poet who's published over a dozen books of poetry. Stephen was one of the 7 vehicle poets who were the avant-garde in the 1970s. The Green Archetypal Field of Poetry on Poetry, Poets, and Psyche is his second book of critical writing on poetry. Please welcome Stephen Morrissey.
So I just want to make sure everybody can see me or hear me. Okay. So thank you to Richard Olofsson for publishing these books and that are being launched today. And thank you to Endre and Carolyn Marie for hosting and doing all the work of, as far as I know, of doing this Zoom book launch. This book, The Green Archetypal Fields of Poetry, isn't poetry. It's criticism and memoir. So I'll read a little bit from the book, but mainly I just want to introduce it. It's also the second book that I've done with Richard and Ekstasis Editions. The first was A Poet's Journey, and that was also memoir and criticism. But it's really the background of the book that I want to discuss for a couple of minutes that I have. It's about where it was created. It's about place in poetry, a specific city or a community, and a commitment to a specific geographical location, but also to a spiritual location. And for me and for other poets, for other poets here, this is of course Montreal. In fact, the whole book is centered on Montreal. The book is it's about Montreal writers, at least English-speaking Montreal writers, because there's a very rich tradition of poetry in the English community. And also Montreal, it's more than just a geographical location. It's something I realized years ago. It's also my psychic center. Other poets have written about place. Place has been important to them. For instance, Charles Olson writing his Maximus poems about Gloucester, William Carlos Williams writing about Patterson, and Louis Dudek also has quite a few poems about Montreal. And there's also John Glasgow, as you know, one of the famous Montreal translators, who has a chapbook called Montreal, which I think is personally one of his best works. Montreal is also where modern English-speaking Canadian poetry was born. If you were a poet living in Canada, for instance, Phyllis Webb or P.K. Page or others, you wanted to come and live in Montreal, at least for a while. Poetry also, modern poetry, modern English, Canadian poetry, really begins with the Montreal group of poets in the 1920s at McGill University. And that's people like F.R. Scott, John Glasgow, A.J.M. Smith, and others, but also Louis Dudek and Irving Layton and A.M. Klein. So this is where we came from, and we haven't left. In this book, I've also written about being about the beginning of being of vehicle poets. It's in an essay called "Starting Out from Vehicle Art." It's about organizing the first readings at the gallery and so on in the early 1970s. It's a history of our early days as poets, the Sunday afternoon readings. Now here we are 50 years later, and we have this Sunday afternoon book launch. It's also about how we eventually formed the vehicle poets. There's a lineage to being a poet. You belong to sort of a family tree of poetry, a canon, a lineage of the canon of what you write. And poetry changes, but it's always in the context of a historical lineage. So there's also our ancestral heritage, which for many of us is Montreal. For me personally, my family have been here since 1840, and that's not long as compared to my Quebecois friends, but it's still a long time. And I've written about family history and you know what Montreal and family history means to me. Poets aren't nomads, and we're not from nowhere. We're from a specific place. But as globalism becomes more and more, economic globalism and so on becomes more and more prevalent and takes over society, our lives, we lose the specificity of place. With globalism, the condos are all the same, whatever city you go to. The stores and the music people listen to are all the same. And what is specific and local is being lost. I'm in favor of what is local, what is in our environment, and what we relate to historically. So my psychic center, which I've mentioned before, is where is my location, and that location is the symbolism of my work. It's also growing up on Girard Avenue, my grandmother's house for my first 4 years. For various reasons, we had to go and live with my grandmother, and that was a profound experience for me. So place works out on a number of levels, and that's why this book grows out of place. It works on a geographical place, spiritual, ancestral, and it's what forms us as people. It's the birth of our psyche. That's how I became a poet. It began here in the city of Montreal, and Montreal is a city of poets. I'll just read one little piece from an essay in the book. From on place in poetry. This is the last part of that essay. We are increasingly living in a deracinated world, in a global community, but a global community is an abstraction, an invention of committees and legislation, and driven for profit and by people's personal ambition. It is an intellectual construct. It is not born organically, a process that may take hundreds or thousands of years of human migration, political and military strategies, layers of cultural change, and spiritual vision. There is also a spirit of place. Spirit of place manifests in the natural world, but it also includes our ancestral memory and family history and stories. If we are not careful, we will soon be living in Huxley's Brave New World or Orwell's 1984 world of geographical regions and the repression of creative individuality, not places of vibrant specificity that are containers of soul. A geographical place is specific and local. It is not abstract, but concrete. Globalism is an abstract concept that has little or no connection to community or place. Abstraction denies the specificity of place. Place emphasizes the diverse world of things. Poetry requires community. It requires the diversity of a specific place. So that's the sort of the foundation of the book, and all the rest. All the book grows out of that idea of place in poetry and Montreal. The whole thing relates back to Montreal. So I guess that's about it for me, if that's the way we end this. Now, so maybe Carolyn Marie, can you, do you want to go on to you?
Yeah, it's all good. Steve, I appreciate your mentioning the idea that poetry requires community and the diversity of a specific place. And I'm happy. I'm looking forward to reading the book. I know you personally, and I know your work, but I haven't read a lot of your essays, so I'm going to be really interested in getting an overview. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
Originaire de Lévis, Paul Bélanger habite Montréal. Poète de renom maintes fois primé dont le souffle poétique est aussi puissant qu'érudit, il est également connu pour sa prose avec des publications telles que Les Jours de l'éclipse, Québec-Amérique 2003, finaliste au prix du gouverneur général et mention d'excellence de la Société des écrivains canadiens, et Le Passeur du Palais des Ombres et Cahiers de Fernando Pessoa à Montréal, édition du Silence 2010. Plusieurs de ses poèmes ont été traduits en espagnol, en portugais et en anglais, et il est membre de l'Académie des lettres du Québec. Paul Bélanger a été directeur littéraire des éditions du Norrois de 1991 à 2021 et demeure à ce jour une figure incontournable et indissociable de la maison. Paul's translator, Antonio D'Alfonso, has published more than 50 books, including translations, and has made 5 feature films. His writing has earned him the Trillium Award and the Bressani Award. His film Bruco won the New York Independent Film Award. His latest film, Tata, Daddy, was released in July 2020, and The Two-Headed Man Collected Poems 1970 to 2020 was published in July 2020. Antonio is the founder of Guernica Editions, which he managed for 33 years. More recently, he started up a YouTube series of conversations with artists and producers. Please welcome Paul Bélanger and Antonio D'Alfonso.
Merci, Caroline. Merci. Thanks, Richard, for the book. Thanks, Antonio, for the translation. So we read it now. Quelques extraits. Comme je n'avais rien pour écrire, j'ai demandé à la femme de chambre qu'elle m'apporte un cahier. Mais que vais-je raconter tant il semble que je suis vide? Pourquoi faudrait-il raconter? Je n'ai jamais pensé qu'il faille raconter pour écrire. Raconter quoi à la fin? Le récit de sa propre naissance? L'écriture n'a pour but que son combat pour naître. Le plus souvent, la naissance est ratée. Ce ratage constitue l'essentiel. Écrire demeure le but ultime.
As I had nothing to write with, I asked the chambermaid to bring me a notebook. But what am I going to write, as I feel so empty? Why should I write? I have never thought that you have to tell a story to write. To tell what in the end? The story of one's birth? The purpose of writing is only its struggle to be born. Most of the time, the birth is failed. This failure constitutes the essential. Writing remains the ultimate goal.
Je suis parti de Lisbonne par inadvertance sur un bateau de fret qui cachait de l'opium. Je l'ignorais au moment de monter. Je ne savais même pas que j'en étais le passager. De sorte que j'ai fait une traversée des plus opiacées. Je m'en remets à peine. J'ai habité durant plusieurs jours cette sensation du ronronnement infini de l'immobilité. J'ai plongé tel un Faust nouveau, lavé et salé par la mer, vers l'ombre de mon inconnaissance. Les heures qui heurtaient le navire passaient aussi dans mon corps.
I left Lisbon on a cargo ship that was hiding opium. I did not know when I got on board. I did not even know I was a passenger. So I had the most opiate-filled trip. I am slowly coming out of the haze. For several days I lived in this sensation of the infinite hum of immobility. Like a reborn Faust, washed and salted by the sea, I plunged into the shadow of my unknowing. The hours that splashed against the ship also splashed against my body.
Les départs ne font pas de nous des étrangers. L'étrange fonde la pensée. Me voici dans une ville que je n'ai pas choisie. En avais-je seulement entendu parler? Qui n'a assisté à aucune des circonstances de ma vie, toutes à Lisbonne? Peut-être l'ai-je ressenti comme sensation.
Departures do not make us strangers. What is strange is the foundation of thought. Here I am in a city that I did not choose. Had I ever heard of it? That has not attended any incident in my life, all in Lisbon. Perhaps I have always felt it as a sensation.
J'étais las de ma fatigue en entrant dans la chambre, le corps lourd. J'ai dormi 24 heures sans discontinuer, me levant de temps à autre et péniblement pour me laver. Ai-je rêvé cette ville au sang clocher? Dehors, une brume tiède recouvre tout. Quel rôle ce cahier joue-t-il, qui est arrivé par les mains de la femme de chambre? Moi qui aime me perdre dans la brume, j'y resterai jusqu'au départ du bateau, pour ne plus entendre la voix glacée. Je peux rester là, observer, continuer d'être. Celui qui regarde le monde l'éprouve, l'écoute et le nomme. J'aimerais descendre jusqu'au fleuve. Les fleuves sont la respiration des villes. Le Tage est tortueux et brun. Le Saint-Laurent est gris. Son courant draine de larges rêves.
I was tired of my fatigue when I entered the room, my body heavy. I slept for 24 hours without interruption, getting up from time to wash myself. Did I dream this city of 100 steeples? Outside, a warm mist covers everything. What role does this notebook play, which arrived in the hands of a chambermaid? I, who like to lose myself in the mist, will stay there until the departure of the boat, so as not to hear the icy voice anymore. I can't stand there, observe, continue to be the one who looks at the world, tests it, listens to it, and names it. I would like to go down to the river. Rivers are the breath of cities. The Tagus is tortuous and brown. The St. Lawrence is gray. Its current drains the active fancy.
Merci.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you all. Thank you, Mary.
Merci, Antonio.
Ciao. Merci, Paul.
Merci.
Thank you. What else is there to say after écrire demeure le but ultime? It's you say it all there. And I loved the idea of being tired of my fatigue. I certainly know how that feels. Okay, so thanks for that reading. Really lovely. Ken Norris was born in New York City in 1951. He came to Canada in the early 1970s to escape Nixon-era America and to pursue his graduate education. He completed an MA at Concordia University and a PhD in Canadian literature at McGill University. He became a Canadian citizen in 1985. A prolific poet and traveler, Ken was also one of the Vehicule poets and its historian, and is professor emeritus at the University of Maine, where he taught creative writing and Canadian literature for 33 years. Currently, he's a reluctant pandemic prisoner of Toronto. Unfortunately, Ken can't be with us this afternoon, so I'll be reading a couple of the poems from his book. we have to have one female reader today. So it's me. I'll try to do his book justice. Signs. For as long as it takes the white frangipani flower to open, for all the time it takes the green shoots to reach a living hand. Last night the dazed, broken moon was shimmering in the dark sea of sky. For as long as it takes the quiet to invade the noise, for all the time it takes that ear of yellow corn to fully grow to realization. Cut leaves and branches are scattered from the trimming of the trees. The sun bakes them into dryness. The wood will be good for someone's anonymous fire. In the moment when the fallen rubber band in the road makes a figure 8, or, seen sideways, presents the sign of the infinite. We walk about in a maze of being, clouds crossing the sky. The satellite dishes above the terraced flowers not knowing what they are or what they do. Names applied to the things of the world, by whom? As Nam is water, as Kai is chicken. Write down the names, trying to decipher the unreadable signs. Happy heart. She was stepping about the street. She was doing nothing special. It was just an ordinary sunny morning, not too late, on green soy 7. But if you looked at her closely, you could see it clearly, in the splendid way her hair was combed, in the precise way that she was dressed, in the subdued and joyful way she moved, but even more, in the way she simply radiated. For whatever secret reason, the blessed thing she was keeping to herself, for herself, by the grace of Buddha, love, family, or good fortune, that young Thai girl had a happy heart. Origins. Derived from kale, from spinach, from carrots, from wooden crates filled with burgeoning oranges. Derived from bitter lemons and sweet bananas, bright limes, a moon-shaped cantaloupe, a blue basket of ripe red strawberries. Derived from the muscular dimensions of squash, of rhubarb, sweet potatoes in their rough skin, of sweet peas in their pods, eggplants in their purple casings, limbed celery, the black-seeded clarity of watermelon. Potatoes were my tutors, and it was a hand of broccoli that rocked the cradle, while cauliflower performed all kinds of amusement to entertain the mind of a child. Derived from tangy tangerines and grapefruit, from spiky pineapple and milky coconut, from blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, from garlic, ginger, basil, oregano, rosemary, from moist mushrooms and stalky asparagus, dumpy turnips and twisting kohlrabi, from mustaches of green beans and ears of husky corn, from all the edible gifts of the earth.
That was beautiful.
I love that last one. I love reading all the, in practicing, I just love the imagery, and thank you. Well, thank you to Ken. That's his poem. Okay, we'll move on. Larry Tromblay, joining us from France, is a writer, director, and actor. He has published more than 30 books, translated into numerous languages, as a playwright, novelist, poet, and essayist. His acclaimed theatrical works have been produced around the world. In 2006, he was awarded Canada Council's Victor Martin Lynch Staunton Prize for his contribution to theatre. The same year, Éditions Gallimard published Piercing, a collection of 3 of his short stories. Tromblay recently published highly acclaimed novels, including The Obese Christ, 2012, and The Second Husband, 2019. The Orange Grove, which won the Prix des Libraires in 2014 and 16 other prizes in Canada and Europe, is now published in 20 countries. Donald Winkler is a Montreal-based literary translator and documentary filmmaker. In the realm of poetry, he's made films on Irving Layton, P.K. Page, and F.R. Scott, among others. He has translated Roland Giguère and Pierre Nepveu. He is a 3-time winner of the Governor General's Award for French to English translation. Please welcome Larry and Dawn.
Bonjour tout le monde, content d'être avec vous cet après-midi. J'allais dire ce soir parce qu'il y a un petit décalage horaire entre vous et moi. Oui, je vais vous lire avec Don qui a traduit L'œil soldat la finale de ce récit poétique. Donc c'est un récit et il y a vraiment 2 personnes qui m'ont nourri pour écrire ce livre. D'abord, un livre que j'adore depuis très longtemps, La prose du transsibérien de Douglas Sandra, qui m'a finalement inspiré la forme du livre, parce que la prose du transsibérien, c'est un récit qui raconte quelque chose, et L'œil soldat aussi. Et j'ai aussi, en fait, ce qui m'a amené à écrire ce livre, c'est 2 livres d'Anna Politkovskaya, une Ukrainienne, une journaliste qui a été assassinée il y a quelques années, malheureusement. Elle a écrit un livre sur la Tchétchénie, donc la guerre de Tchétchénie, et aussi un autre livre sur Poutine, Vladimir Poutine. Et ça a été suffisant pour moi pour commencer à écrire sur les mots de la guerre, les mots de la haine, d'où viennent la guerre, pourquoi il y a toujours des guerres, des conflits ethniques, quelles sont les conséquences. Et j'ai voulu travailler de façon poétique sur cette problématique de la guerre. Donc, je remercie Don d'avoir traduit ça. J'ai eu beaucoup de plaisir, Don, de travailler avec toi sur cette traduction. C'était vraiment formidable. Donc, je vais lire la finale de ce récit. Je nous entends dans notre cœur, nous forgeons des dieux petits comme nos yeux et nous les prions d'assassiner les chiens. Nous les prions de couper les bras de ceux qui grimpent de l'autre côté du mur. Nous les prions de saccager de sourire. Nos dieux, aux yeux chauds, au sexe amer, nous les exhortons à dépecer le ciel des villes frontières, à crever les eaux de leurs rivières. Nos yeux chiens, nos cœurs points. Nous les brandissons sur le métal de nos toits et jamais nous ne rions. Martelons avec le marteau de nos crânes les mots sans pudeur, explosifs, mangeurs de matin, annonciateurs de la défiguration. Qui pourrait, après, donner un visage? Cette fatigue, pourtant cette fatigue. Que deviennent les soldats en les mots, en chiffres rouges, écrits? J'enlève mon casque. Avec lui, j'arrache la peur de ma tête. J'arrache la lumière noire de mes cheveux. J'arrache la boue, le sang séché. J'arrache ma tête de soldat. Je ne veux plus tuer. Je ne veux plus compter les chiffres. Je ne veux plus compter les noms de Dieu. Je ne veux plus trembler quand mes yeux visent. J'arrache ma chemise tachée de monde. Je dépose ma fatigue de métal. Je me déshabille de mes couteaux, de mes grenades, de mes fusils, de mes bombes, de mes lance-flammes. Je me défais de mes tremblements, de ma saleté, de mes cris, de ma fureur, de mes coups de botte, de mes coups de pelle, de mes coups de poing, de mes coups de queue. J'efface le nom de mes ancêtres. Je fends l'arbre en son milieu, je le délivre de sa sève. J'efface le nom des villes martyrs, avec leurs frontières de prière, avec leurs barbelés de signes. Je redonne aux soldats sa nudité. Aujourd'hui, je me tiens au sommet d'une montagne d'air, fragile comme un absent. La pensée peut-elle se passer de nos têtes vives, de nos morsures? Y a-t-il assez de mots pour attraper toute la pensée? Y a-t-il trop de mots pour la vérité chétive? Aujourd'hui, je ferme mon œil soldat. Dedans, ça brille, un reflet, le violacé de la douleur, la trace d'une éternité, le frisson du monde, racine de lumière, grain. Une fenêtre appelle, les étoiles y brillent dans le noir, un oiseau stellaire franchit la marge du monde, les mots fusent sous la voûte de la nuit, mon corps danse comme une lettre offerte. Merci.
Thank you, Larry. And thank you for the challenge of translating this remarkable book. As Larry said, it's about war. And this is how the book concludes. I hear us in our fear. We forge gods small as our eyes, and we beg them to murder song. We beg them to lop off the arms of those who climb over the wall. We beg them to plunder smiles, our gods of bald eyes, of sour sex. We exhort them to skin the border city skies, to spill their rivers' waters. Our dog gods, our fist hearts. We brandish them on our metal roofs, and we never laugh. We batter with our skull's hammer, brazen words, explosive, morning gorgers, prophets of disfiguration. Who could then love a face? This fatigue, yet this fatigue. What becomes of the soldiers when words are inscribed in red figures? I take off my helmet. With it, I rip fear from my head. I rip black light from my hair. I rip away mud, dried blood. I rip away my soldier's head. I want to kill no more. I want no more to tally figures. I want no more to count out the names of God. I want no more to tremble when my eyes take aim. I rip off my shirt stained with death. I lay down my metal fatigue. I strip myself of my knives, my grenades, my guns, my bombs, my flamethrowers. I divest myself of my trembling, my filth, my cries, my furor, my boot blows, my shovel blows, my fist blows, my cock blows. I erase the name of my ancestors. I split the tree down the middle. I deliver it of its sap. I erase the names of martyred cities with their frontiers of prayers, with their barbed wire of signs. I restore to the soldier his nakedness. Today I stand at the peak of a mountain of air, brittle as an accent. Can thought do without our hard heads, our sharp teeth? Are there enough words to capture all thought? Are there too many words for a stunted truth? Today, I shut my soldier's eye. It glows within, a reflection, the purple of pain, a trace of eternity, the shimmering of a wave, root of light, seed. A window beckons, stars right in darkness. A star-flung bird bursts the world's bounds. Words pulse, beneath the vault of night. My body dances like a letter tendered to the unfathomable. Thank you very much.
Merci, Dan.
Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to thank you for a gorgeous translation of a very powerful text. Larry, I first discovered your writing in The Orange Grove, which I loved. I read it in both English and in French, and I look forward to reading this. Just powerful. Thank you. Robert Lalonde. Oh, excuse me. Sorry. Take that back. Endre Farkas escaped from Hungary with his parents during the 1956 uprising and settled in Montreal. A vehicle poet, his work has a political consciousness and experimental bent. He is a genre-fluid writer who has collaborated with dancers, musicians, and actors to move the poem from page to stage. His play Haunted House, based on the life and work of the poet A.M. Klein, was produced in Montreal in 2009. He has produced video poems that have been screened around the world. Blood is Blood, a collaboration with yours truly, won first prize in its category at the 2012 Zebra Poetry Film Festival in Berlin. His poems have been translated into French, Spanish, Hungarian, Italian, and Slovenian. His novel Home Game was shortlisted for the Paragraph Hugh MacLennan Prize for Fiction in 2020. Please welcome Endre Farkas.
You're muted. Endre, you're muted.
Unmuted. Am I okay now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll start again. Take two. Thank you. And these poems in I Will Tell You One More Thing is a result of being my father's caregiver as he descended into Alzheimer's. They are reflections, fragmented conversations, and refractions of his disappearance. The first one I'm going to read is Forget Me Not, which, by the way, is the official flower of the Alzheimer's Society. Forget me not. You slip away from the world. The world slips away from you, imperceptibly. Keys, for a moment, misplaced. Then, a name on the tip of your tongue. Then, not. Then, the tale told again, and again, and again. Shadows slip on like old slippers, over unsure, bony feet, over what you know, over you. Familiar corridors, the safety of sameness, carpets and doors become labyrinths that go on, left, right, exit, through mirrors and paralyze. In the light, the present disintegrates into dust motes, streams in windows of forgetting. Is the present in the eyes, or in the past, passing, or who are you, strumming on fraying chords? Who is haunting the ins and outs of convoluting contours? Your brain, plowed under, forgets if you ate, or touched, or smelled, or heard something. The inescapable lousiness of asking, the familiar stranger so loud in your head. Its unwinding disappears you, leaves you rudderless between ports that fade. Everyone is slipping into your fears. Years asleep, awake, you hear the buzz of their thievery just out of sight, lines being disconnected. somebody has been pulling them. Certain, always just out of everything sheds its name, its thingness, almost silent and needing to be taken care of. All is no more, but it's shedding. As long as you live the ancient memories, shedding until itself is shed, you breathe. You say, I will tell you one more thing. Why? I'm here because you are my father, and I want to know what went wrong in your labyrinthian brain. I'm here because I want you to remember, because I want the you who knew me before I did, but now often doesn't. I'm here because you are leaving and asking me about you. I am here because the doctors tell me it's hereditary, because I want to know what might become of me when I forget me. Postcards. You talk past me at the mirror people. Every day you leave for another country. Every day less and less of you returns. Sometimes smudged postcards slip through your lips. Come home, I write on your fragile skin, but have no address to send to. Though pointless, a P.S. Wish you were here. This is a kind of a poem of deciding whether it's better to rely on God or the doctor. It's called Science and Religion. Docs and gods. What's the difference? One is older, both make us tremble. One is younger, both gives us comfort. We worship both. To both we confess. There are so many of them. In them our hope is eternal. We're always appealing to one, giving thanks to the other. Oh, doctor, thank God. And after a while of dealing with Alzheimer's, you get to know it almost too intimately. So this poem is called When Al Visits. Al is short for Alzheimer's. And when Al comes, he brings his whole fucking family, kit and caboodle. They settle in like deadbeat relatives, take over every nook and cranny, track dirt all over, leave a trail of trash, not giving a shit about the shit they cause. They sit at the table, ravenous, napkin under chin, and slowly eat you out of house and home, body, mind, and soul. And then disappear into thin air, leave behind a carcass, scars, and a deep hunger in those who remain. Lift up my eyes. In spite of my best wishes, you're alive. In your God's presence, in your past, in your mother tongue, in your laboring nonsense. You reach out, raise your hands above my head, form a canopy, mutter a blessing for sun on my face, grace in my heart, peace in my soul, and a long life. And the last one, heirloom. I wear your fedora. I wear your face. I wear you. Thank you very much.
I know, Endre, this book was difficult for you to write, but the poems are sad, tender, funny by turn, and very human. And I'd like to thank you for sharing them with us this afternoon.
Thank you.
Robert Lalonde, Order of Canada, is a Quebecois actor and writer who won the Governor General's Award for French language fiction for Le Petit Aigle à Tête Blanche. He was also nominated in 1989 for The Devil Himself, in 1993 for Seven Lakes Further North, in 2007 for Endangered Species, and in 2014 for The Heart That Dies Last. Lalonde's film and television roles as an actor have included La Sarrasine, Lily's Looking for Alexander, Shake Hands with the Devil, Bittersweet Memories, Séraphin, Heart of Stone, and The Survivors, Villeneuve. Unfortunately, Robert can't be with us, but his translator, Jean-Paul Murray, is. Jean-Paul is a certified translator, researcher, and communications specialist who's translated some 19 books. From 1995 to 1998, he was managing editor of Cité Libre, a magazine founded by Pierre Elliott Trudeau. His previous translations for Ekstasis editions include Robert Lalonde's Seven Lakes Further North, Little Eagle with a White Head, Louis Hamelin's Betsy la Rousse, and André Majeur's The Devil's Wind. In the coming months, Ekstasis will publish his translation of René Frémy's Je me souviens de tous vos rêves. Resident of Chelsea, Quebec, he is secretary of the Gatineau Park Protection Committee. Please welcome Jean-Paul Murray.
Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you, Richard. And thanks to all the participants. On a cold December evening, Robert Lalonde's house burnt to the ground. Sifting through the burnt debris one day, the author finds unscathed Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass. I think I'm going to translate Whitman, all leaves of grass, he tells his wife. That'll keep him busy. So that's basically the genesis of the book, which was a pleasure to translate. And this is how Robert Lalonde remembers the incident. La veille, jour de Noël, devant la fenêtre fouettée par la poudrerie, j'avais recopié au dos d'un conte impayé ces mots de Scott Fitzgerald, attribués à son cher Gatsby. I saw the skins of tigers flaming in the night. Ces mots-là, précisément. Notre maison a entièrement brûlé dans la nuit du 26 décembre 2018. Both of us are somewhere, sheltered, far from home, somewhere, elsewhere, in front of a big lake that is blue as the sky this morning. Somewhere, nowhere, elsewhere. A July like none other. Aggiornamento, as the Italians say, in transition. Transition, sanctuary, displaced. Obscure words that mean everything and nothing. I still see the skins of tigers flaming in the night. Whitman accompanies me. Everything's fine. Everything will be fine. Tout homme est à la fois une interrogation et un défi. Il est souvent bon de chuter. Il faut accepter de perdre la bataille comme de la gagner. J'arpente des débris calcinés. Notre cuisine, notre chambre, le salon, la bibliothèque. Des grottes noires de contes noirs. Des fantômes de feuillage valsent sur les murs d'une chambre inconnue. J'écoute le huard pousser sa gueulante passionnée. Un appel, une exhortation. Entamée comme si de rien n'était la journée qui commence. Je m'approche de la fenêtre, j'attrape les jumelles. Là, tout au bout du quai, ils sont trois. La mère et son petit que la vague escamote, libère, dissimule à nouveau, et le père, en cérémonieux plumage de noces, qui nage un peu plus au large. Il plonge. Je compte 36 secondes avant qu'il fasse surface. Le nouveau temps est désordonné. Il avance et recule à la fois, si dissemblable à ce qu'il était avant. L'heure, le jour, la semaine, le mois. La même durée, tantôt dilatée, tantôt contractée et qui fuit. I am around, tenacious, acquisitive, tireless, and cannot be shaken away. Je suis à l'affût, tenace, avide, infatigable, et rien ni personne ne peut m'ébranler. A raging wind, a torrential downpour. At the bottom of the hill, the creek overflowed its banks and turned into a mountain cataract. All night long, the howling gust kept us awake, our hands clasped like Hansel and Gretel in the wolf's forest. The garden is a steppe strewn with branches torn from ash trees that sway like the masts of storm-battered ships. I go outside and immediately take 20 weightless steps, carried by the squall. I feel like clapping my hands as though I were before an apotheosis. Well, the clematis managed to hang on, being well fastened to the porch post. Je crois qu'une lame d'herbe n'a pas moins d'importance que l'héroïque voyage des étoiles. Je relis Le Hussard sur le toit, ces pages exhalant le madrier à demi brûlé. Écrivant il y a plus de 20 ans mon roman « 7 lacs plus au nord », j'avais en tête l'Angelo de Giono, que l'aube surprend à la toute première page du roman, béat et muet mais réveillé. Angelo qui a le goût de la supériorité, la terreur de l'affectation et qui est heureux même devant le grand rire blanc et pourpre des colériques. Mon Michel est à l'idéal et à l'image idéale d'Angelo parcourant le pays pour retrouver sa bien-aimée, celui qui traverse à la recherche de l'Indien, de son amour perdu, des paysages d'automne fleurant le feu et la résine, et qui, chemin faisant, prend l'habitude de s'occuper de ses propres rêves. Pour Michel, comme pour Angelo, tout bien connaître ou ne savoir rien revient au même. Michel, comme le héros de Giono, écoutant en lui la voix de sa mère, entend celle de l'Indien. L'œil fixé sur des lointains très personnels, c'est la passion de l'évasion et de la quête emmêlée qui poussait mon crayon pour 7 lacs. Le voyage vaut mieux que son aboutissement, et comme l'écrit Giono, plus on aime, plus il faut payer cher. Pilgrims of the snows, we climbed to the top of a mountain with poles, where the pink tremors of twilight awaited us. But night falls so quickly now, and we immediately have to head back down, fumbling along in the path's faint light, snagged by a branch to the left, the edge of a crag to the right, catching a glimpse of the lake's pale glimmer far below. Bruegel painted this extraordinary scene at dusk. We are gnomes walking as best we can in the gray snow of sunset, a cloud of crows flying above us. The powerful play goes on, and you may contribute a verse. Je suis tout pareil à Yuri dans la vieille tacha familiale, noircissant sans finir page après page de poèmes, évoquant son amour et son pays, inextricablement emmêlés et tous deux perdus dans un même envol immodéré. Pendant que sans répit tombe la neige et que dans la fenêtre une forêt de cristal le convoque à un fatal éblouissement, exactement celle que j'ai ce matin sous les yeux. Snow fills the sky. Pasternak's novel disappeared in the flames, but his straitjacket winter still howls inside me, reminding me that we write because we were happy without knowing it, and that we fully intend to be so again, whatever happens, forbidding time from ever stealing the intoxication of the moment from us. Springtime, the awakening forest, animals rid of our disturbing presence, clouds freely blowing by from north to south, like smoke from a leaf fire. Swirls of loose snow followed by streams of sunshine that light up the spruce trees. Then, slowly, like a light bulb burning inside cotton wool, the fireball fades away. Winter and warm weather quarrel, make up, clash again, before going at it once more amid a swirl of powdery crystals. A lull follows at about 6 o'clock in the evening. 3 cooing doves fly across a gray-white sky. Flopped on a big log, we reluctantly wait for a new beginning. Yes, another new beginning. We don't talk about it, but as often happens at dusk, the old house comes back to haunt us as though it had been blown here by the strong wind now rising. It is, no longer is, it was, will be, never will be again. How does Faulkner put it? Oh yes, the past is. There are mornings when the universe and I are in spontaneous agreement. Dawn is the pearlescent purple of an oyster open on the sand. A blackbird chirps in grass that shimmers with dew. What can I ask for that isn't already mine? I'm done with empty hopes and perverse regrets. I who, as Nelligan wrote, walked warily through my dark youth. Blessed fire that gave me back the useless and necessary passion to let myself live. The dead below, the living above, the sun shines through new leaves, the fountain sings, the woodpecker chisels into the trunk of the dead ash tree. Have you no thought, O dreamer, that it all may be Maya illusion? Ne songes-tu pas parfois au rêveur que tout peut n'être que Maya illusion? And there goes a clumsy crow flying above the tree from left to right. Good luck for today, as my extravagant mother used to say. We'll likely need it. Without knowing, we always need it. Summer is already here. I take a break from my desk, knowing I'll return. As Colette wrote, it's as hard to stop as it is to continue. Madame la Présidente, thank you.
Wow. Compelling, poetic, moving, filled with imagery, philosophical. I really enjoyed how you wove the English and the French texts into an artistic tapestry that mimics the narrative. Thank you. Beautiful, beautiful. Translation and original. Translation and original. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we've come to the end of this launch almost. Before we end, we'll have a Q&A, but before that, we'll have a buy the books plug. So we encourage you to support both Ekstasis editions and the authors by buying their books, which are available in Montreal at The Word and at Librairie Paragraph, or from Ekstasis editions directly. For people outside Montreal, we encourage you to go to your local independent bookstore, and if they don't have the book or the books you want, get them to order it or them. Please use Amazon as a last resort if you must. Now I'll pass it on to Endre, who has a few words to say.
Thank you. On behalf of the writers, translators, who are writers as well, I would like to thank Jan Jorgensen and Lawn Chair Soirée. Jan, who's hiding behind these images, and her partners in the service of poetry have done an important and amazing job for the literary community of Montreal. They have hosted regular readings. They have hosted launches by other people, which we are one of. So much thanks to Jan, and may the power be with you. She just got over COVID, so we're hoping that all this will somehow help her heal. Thanks also to MC Poet, sounds like a rapper, right? MC Poet Carolyn Marie Swade, whose book, she's also a poet, a very fine one, and with Ekstasis. The 11th Hour was published by Ekstasis in 2020 and is still available. Thank you for your emceeing and all your behind-the-scenes help and advice. And thanks to all of you, the audience, for coming and participating in this virtual launch. And with that, I turn it back to Carolyn and see if people are interested in Qing and Aing.
Actually, there's been a slight adjustment in the schedule. Before we get to the Q&A, Richard Olofsson would like to speak again. He's got a couple of things he forgot to say that he would like to add. So I'm going to ask Richard to come back in, and then we'll move into the Q&A. So Richard, you out there?
Thank you, Carolyn. It's such a pleasure to see so many friends in Montreal, and I hope that things will loosen up and we can all meet together again at the Salon de Livre. So here's to the future, and I just want to say about the Ekstasis website. The links to these books don't work on the Ekstasis website right now, but I'm hoping to have it solved by tomorrow. I have somebody coming in. My production guy quit, and I had to decipher his his web work because it's so I'm going to revisit that. Hopefully by the end of tomorrow, that'll be working. And so here's the hope. And I have a few things I just forgot to important acknowledgements that I forgot to say. So I'm like to apologize, and I was speaking off the top of my head, so I was a bit nervous, and I thought, oh, I better close this down fast so that the poets can speak. So I apologize for that. First off, I neglected to mention Larry Tromblay's book. I was thinking at the top of my head, and I just forgot some things. And this is a very important book, especially since we're dealing with the war situation in the world. So any anti-war voices are very important. And we're publishing Larry Tromblay's choreography tree hopefully by the fall. We had a really beautiful design, but Larry thought it wasn't appropriate, and I agreed with him. So we're just redoing it, and we have a nice design that we're going to present to Larry for his approval shortly. So thank you for that. It's a beautiful lyric, evocative anti-war book, and it's very significant that it's translated by Donald Winkler, who is one of the best translators of poetry in the country, and we're so fortunate to have his work present. And I also like to quickly, this is our 40th anniversary, and I like to quickly acknowledge the support of Antonio D'Alfonso, who has really helped helped me navigate the labyrinth of Quebec poetics. So I'd like to just acknowledge Antonio. He's been working as an unofficial editor in Montreal, I'd like to say, and Stephen is here, and I want to especially acknowledge Carolyn Zanilo, who is Stephen's partner, because as I was putting together my first book of poetry, my first book, which was a book of poems that I wanted to bring into being, Blood of the Moon, the first book by Ekstasis, and it was still a manuscript. And I met Carolyn on Saturna Island, and she was a real inspiration. And it was one of those inspired moments that launched Ekstasis as such. And so I just want to acknowledge Carolyn. I'd already thought about it in my head last night when I was thinking what I was going to say, but then I forgot all these mentions. So I wanted to apologize and ask for redemption. So thank you very much, Carolyn, and go on with the Q&A.
Okay. So now, thank you, Richard, for clarifying, adding on to what you said previously. And so now we'll move to the Q&A portion of the event. The authors and translators will be happy to answer any questions you might have. And there are, most of you know this, but there are 3 ways you can do this. You can just put up your hand the old-fashioned way and wait to be called on. You can click the raise your hand icon somewhere under reactions, I think, or you can just type your question into the chat and I'll read it out loud. I think Jan will try to help me with this, and then we'll see what happens. So I will turn it over to anyone who would like to pose a question or type in a question. And Jan, can you help me navigate the,
Yes, I will.
okay. I
will.
think we have Antonio.
It's for Endre. It's a
Your
personal.
voice is very soft.
Oh, okay. Here, that's what I'm
Thank
going to put
you.
these back on. It's for Endre. It's a personal question, but when your father was going through what he's going, how did his language? Did the Hungarian come back, or did it? How did that work? And how did you include that into your writing?
Well, it was a strange, as you all probably know, Alzheimer's is a very strange disease which robs you of memory than of language. My father, whose really his strongest language was Hungarian, his English was a melange to start with. He mixed it up, because he wasn't sure, or we weren't sure he knew who he was talking to. Sometimes he would begin something in Hungarian, then switch to Yiddish, and then sort of maybe throw in something that sounded like English. It was really kind of a weird immigrant experience. And most of it was in Hungarian, which obviously I translated in my head into English. But what I was trying to do with as far as language, in one sense, was try to make the reader and myself understand the disconnected, kind of fragmented phrases and what they say, or first of all what he was trying to say, and secondly, maybe there was a kind of a clue about the nature of Alzheimer's, which I was interested in from a kind of a objective point of view, as well as from the personal point of view. So it was in all the languages that he spoke, and it was at first, at the beginning he was a bit more articulate, and then later on words disappear, or he would say, give me als de meleg verstees he would, and we would try to figure out what he meant, which eventually maybe turned out to be he wanted coffee, and he wanted more sugar in the coffee. But it was an ironic bit of kind of attempting to communicate in three languages, and all the while losing all languages and all cognitive skills. The one skill he did retain incredibly till the end was his math skills. Like I would do exercises with him and ask him the multiplication table or do addition, and he'd just be so quick, as if that part wasn't affected. But that's a weird. Doctors don't know why certain faculties go, certain don't, and of course I don't. But that was part of the language Babylon that I experienced.
Anybody else? Crickets. That's okay. I do see. Jean-Paul?
Questions for Alfonso, and maybe Don as well. You used the word passar. I've come across that word quite often in some of the books I've had to translate in Seven Lakes Further North, etc. It designates a person who helps the living make the transition to that country from whose bourne no one returns. What, in your view, is the best translation into English of a passar? Crickets?
Okay, Don, you permit me?
Go ahead.
That was the reason why. Thank you for the question, you bum. That was the reason why I forced Paul to go with Fernando in Montreal, because that was a big question. I mean, in English, we use the word passeur, right? I mean, I know that Benjamin uses it, and at one point someone wrote about my writing as being a passeur, and I said, I'm not going to use an English word, a French word for an English title. I hate that. As a publisher, I always hated it because it intellectualizes a book, and there's something as a publisher, as an editor, I am against. I want books to be simple, like records, something that gives you an image. And I chose interloper. Now, interloper has a totally different meaning than what you're talking about, Jean-Paul. And so I wanted to go there. I wanted to introduce not the idea of death, because I don't think Fernando Pessoa is not talking about death. He's talking about really a stranger wherever he goes, and and that unwanted person. He doesn't even know where he is, which I thought was more. Yeah, the real word is a passeur, like Benjamin would say. But I thought in English, interloper had that negative connotation that I thought was appropriate. My take.
Thank you.
Et j'étais d'accord.
How are we doing here? Anybody else have a question for anyone? Endre?
Yeah, I'd like to have.
How about Don? Don was supposed to answer.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. What's Don's response to this dilemma?
Sorry.
I'm not sure I have a response offhand, but I'm try to think of what other word might be possible. If you were to just give not a translation, but a definition of the word, what would you say?
I would say an intermediary.
A what?
An intermediary.
An intermediary?
Mm-hmm. Because you're taking a person from one stasis to another.
Yeah.
Un intermédiaire, a gatekeeper.
Yes, or a boatman taking you across the Styx.
Yeah. So what I don't remember how I translated it, but I couldn't find a word. I had to use, as you say, person who takes you across the bridge.
Yeah. Well, I'll think about it.
Okay, thank you.
How are we doing?
A boatman sounds great.
Jan posted in the comments, they called it, when people were dying, spiritual midwifery. Interesting. Yeah. Okay, Endre, you had something to say?
Well, I have a question for Steve Morrissey. Is he still there? Steve's still here?
I believe he had to leave.
Okay. Well, then I won't ask. I was just curious about, in the sense of sacred place, like he focuses in his essay that he talked about in his book about a sense of place. And it was also, I remember one of my all-time favorite poems of Steve's was in the early days when he was really experimenting. And he had a poem called Regard as Sacred, the Disorder of My Mind, which is the whole length, that's the entire poem. But it's fragmented and broken into segments like regard this, anyway, create the sense of disorder as a sacred place. And I was wondering if what he was thinking about in the essay, he seems to be wanting a more solid kind of sense, a psyche as well as physical sense of place that he's trying to make a case for. So I don't know, maybe other writers, peut-être Paul et des autres, peut-être parler de sens de place Is that right? Correct? Sense of place? What do you think in your world a sense of place is? Paul?
Et j'avais. Oui, la question est intéressante. Je vais y répondre en français.
Oui.
Mon anglais est approximatif aujourd'hui. J'ai créé, quand j'étais éditeur, une collection qui s'intitulait Lieux dits. Dans mon esprit, toute personne a en elle-même un lieu qu'il habite, et où qu'elle soit d'ailleurs, où qu'on aille, un escalier, un arbre devant une maison, un fleuve, whatever. Et c'est la même chose pour ce récit de Pessoa. C'est un passage secret qui est arrivé au milieu de nulle part, alors que j'écrivais tout à fait autre chose, et qui s'est imposé à moi d'une façon fulgurante, je dirais, qui m'a habité pour plusieurs jours. Ça fait si je comprends bien la question, André, c'est un peu ça, c'est-à-dire que est-ce que j'ai bien compris ta question sur The Sacred Place?
Sacré?
Ah, sacré.
Oui.
Ah ben là, c'est une autre expérience. Tout autant que nous sommes dans l'expérience intérieure. C'est le sens même de l'art pour moi, de proposer tout à coup un langage qui n'interpelle pas nécessairement le monde directement, mais agit sur lui en agissant sur moi-même et sur les éventuels lecteurs. C'est un lieu fondamental, en tout cas, c'est un lieu où on prend racine, où on s'enracine tout le monde.
Also, for me, that was a part of the dilemma of watching somebody lose their identity in dementia, my father, and in a sense, it was like eating at the roots of identity and place. You know, that was one of the things that I felt that was so sad to watch and so frustrating, that don't know where you are, what you are, who you are, why you are. I mean, why is always a question, but so that kind of the sense of place disappearing for me was a tragic.
Yeah, oui, d'autant que c'est un être de langage.
Oui. Merci.
André.
Anything else? Antonio, all is good. It's okay. Yeah, does anybody want to add to that conversation? Okay, the chat's available. If not, last call.
C'était un événement formidable. Merci pour toutes ces lectures.
Wait, I do want to thank everybody for coming. I think that we were able to have an interesting discussion at the end. J'apprécie la présence de tout le monde. I wish that everyone stay safe and enjoy the rest of your weekend. And don't forget, please buy the books. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
Merci.
Bye bye.
À la prochaine.
À la prochaine.